Hey guys, welcome back to another Hyrox Station Fundamentals. So the wall balls are probably the exercise, the station that catches most competitors out. It's at the end of the race after doing 8K, after multiple hard stations. So you're gonna be tired, labored, and fatigued, meaning your technique may suffer a little bit. So you better work on your squatting technique, your throwing technique, your position, and even your breathing technique. Because if you're not breathing properly when you are gassed and compromised, it's gonna slow you down and make things a lot harder. But don't worry, by following this video, use the tips, use the tricks I'm gonna give you, you'll be able to break down your own mechanics, your own positions, and find what works best for you. So let's start with the basics and let's start with the rules. You'll be using a 4 to 9 kilo ball and doing anywhere between 75 and 100 reps, depending on the category that you perform in. As for heights of the targets, males, you'll be throwing to 10 foot, females 9 foot. Now, when you start your wall ball reps, you have to start from this position, pick up the ball and begin from here. You squat, and then you throw. Now you cannot start like this. You cannot go down, grab the ball, and start your reps from there. That is a no rep. You're gonna waste time, you're gonna waste energy. From the target, you wanna start about arm width away. Now this is a good start position, but it may need to be adjusted depending on your squat mechanics, which we'll cover a little bit later. When you hold the ball, keep it as close as possible to your chest, just below your chin. Now, the further the ball away is, the further away from the center of mass of you it is. It's gonna make it harder, more strenuous on your arms and shoulders. Now, as for hand placement, we don't want the hands to be on the sides of the ball because when you're fatigued and sweaty, the ball's just gonna slip straight through. So we do want the hands to be underneath the ball. Now, as for the elbows, you can have your elbows under the ball or out to the sides. Now, this will depend again on your squatting mechanics. Now, from an energy perspective and efficiency perspective, elbows under the ball is going to be better because as you squat up and down, if we can get the elbows in line with the direction of force, which is diagonally up that way, it's going to be way more efficient as opposed to trying to push from this position. So if you're a very upright squatter, you can maintain a nice upright torso position. Elbows under the ball is going to be good for you. And if you're a little bit more of a hip dominant athlete and you have to lean over more, elbows a little bit higher is going to be more effective for you. Because if you just have the elbows under the ball, as you hinge down, that ball is just going to tip forward, right? So I'll show you a hip dominant position. If you squat down and the elbows are underneath the ball may slip forward. So you have to get the elbows under and higher a little bit more as opposed to a real upright position where you can just pop them from that position. Whilst we're on the elbows, it's also worth pointing out that when you go to your bottom position, make sure that your elbows don't bash off your thighs like so. If your elbows are in, your legs need to be wide. If your elbows are wide, you're probably all good to place your feet wherever you want. Okay, make sure that you ain't bashing down on your thighs. As for head position, you want to keep your head looking up at the target. There's two reasons for this. The first one is so that you can stay focused on the target. And the second one is so that you can encourage your upper back to stay a little bit more extended, which will help your posture. Because if you drop your head down, when you're fatigued, your upper back can round over. Keeping your head up, just like when you do deadlift sometimes, it can help your upper back stay extended in a better position. So let's get into the bottom position of that squat and that wall ball. Now, the non-negotiable is that you squat just below parallel and get your knee just below the crease of the hip, 90 degrees or so. If some of you struggle with that position, they will give you a box to assist. However, I highly recommend that when you practice, just practice doing it correctly will help you because you'll be able to bounce and generate momentum from the bottom to propel you into the next repetition. Now, the more times you mess up with your range of motion and your depth, it's going to cost you time and energy, okay? Because it's going to be deemed as a no rep. So when you're preparing for your wall balls in your training, you need to make sure that you practice the positions. So to achieve that depth, that bottom position, you have to take good care of your mobility, stability, and strength. So achieving a good deep squat, one of the first things that we have to look at is the ankles. Now, you will need a good 10 to 12 centimeters of ankle dorsiflexion for a good quality wall ball. I have my athletes test this using a knee to wall test and then seeing how far they can take that knee forward to the wall. And it's a very simple test to do to see if you have limitations in those ankles. You may find that you lack mobility in both ankles or one more so than the other. If that's the case, then that could be stopping you from achieving good range of motion in your squat depth. Next, we need to look up the chain. Let's look at the hips. So you could be categorized one of two camps. you're either a quad dominant athlete or a hip dominant athlete. If you are quad dominant, you probably can squat very upright with an upright torso. Your knees will travel very much past your toes. If you're a hip dominant athlete, you probably lack that knee over toe position and you have to hinge over a little bit more. Now, from a biomechanics perspective, if you're someone with short femurs and a long torso, you're probably going to be a very quad dominant athlete. You're going to be able to squat very upright, and squatting comes very natural to you. You're probably very good at squatting, and you're probably very, very good at overhead squatting and front squatting. If this is you, you are built to do good quality fast wall balls. Get your elbows underneath the ball because you're going to have a more upright torso. You'll be able to pop them out very, very fast. However, if you are like me and you have longer femurs and a shorter torso, then you're most likely a hip dominant athlete. And when you squat, you have to hinge and lean over more with the torso. You will probably prefer deadlifting, low bar back squatting, and when you do your wall balls, will probably just break parallel. Now, for efficient, fast, consistent wall balls, there is no doubt that if you are short femurs, long torso, quad dominant, you are going to be super, super good at doing wall balls. Lucky you, you were just built to squat in these positions. Now, there are a few ways that you can achieve a more upright torso and a lower squat position by using a weightlifting wedge. Now, these are weightlifting shoes. They have an elevated heel. You might see people using these in the gym, or you can elevate your heels on small plates. You can also improve your squat depth and your torso position by improving your ankle dorsiflexion. Like the test I showed you earlier, if that is something you're lacking in the ankles, then you need to do some soft tissue work and some strength work. You can also take a wider stance when you squat. This will help reduce the range of motion that you have to travel when you squat and help you get into that bottom range of motion position. You can also abduct your knees more by pulling them outwards as you squat down. This will also help you achieve a better range of motion in that bottom position. And lastly, you can just work on your quadricep strength, front of the thighs. Guys, I do want you to understand that I'm just trying to simplify this for you. In sports science, we use a term called skills versus capacities, and this is basically how we break down a movement skill, a movement pattern. Is the person lacking the skill? Are they a beginner? Can they actually squat correctly? Or do they lack the capacities to get in those positions? Like I said earlier, the mobility in the ankles, the strength in the quads, the positions. If you're lacking the skill, it could be a beginner thing. It could be a neurological thing. If it's a more capacity thing, maybe you're a runner, or maybe you haven't done much weight training. Maybe you sit at a desk all day and you've developed poor mobility and strength in the areas that you need it to achieve good wall balls. So now we've got your start position with the ball, we've got your bottom position covered and your squatting mechanics. Let's go with the throw-in and the top position of your wall ball. As any squatting movement, we want to make sure that when we stand up, we are fully extending at the knee and the hip. This will just contribute to force output and power and make the actual ball throw-in a lot easier. Now, the wall ball is predominantly a lower body exercise. The arms and shoulders will fatigue. They do contribute obviously to the throw, but to a lesser extent. The reason why those shoulders and arms fatigue is because they're up here for long extended periods of time, not because they're actually being used to throw the ball as much, okay? So it's a probably 75% lower body hip dominant movement and a 25-30% movement strength coming from the arms. What we don't want to do is jump when we do our wall ball. We're going to waste and expend too much energy. So let's go through some of those points. An arm width away from the wall. Get into your squat stance that you've played with in your training and your prep. Pick up the ball and stand up straight, and then begin the descent of your squat. Squat down and throw. Now, just to break down that bottom position again, as you come down and as you drive up, you're driving force from the legs, and that force will be transferred through the legs, through the hips, through the trunk and core, out into the arms, out into the fingertips, out into the ball for the throw to occur. When it comes to the throw-in mechanic side of things, we want to make sure that we come up, we lock the hips and knees, we lock the elbows, and we point the fingertips towards the target. Hit the target, the ball will come back down, catch the ball, and you go back down into the next rep. When you catch the ball, try and catch the ball on the way down. If you can catch the ball on the way down and make it one smooth movement down, you're going to allow yourself to create momentum going down, and then you can propel yourself back up nice and dynamically, as opposed to being sticky, is what I like to call it when you do your wall ball. You do not want to do it like this. Instead, we want to make it more rhythmic. And you can see there that I'm catching the ball as I'm going down. Now, when you're doing your wall balls, it's really, really important that you stay tight and you stay active throughout every single repetition that you do. If you do not maintain good posture and stay tight, the ball could potentially pull you over around your back and you can lose tension and just waste more energy. So yes, you need to practice the technique of good movement patterns, good wall balls, but also practice your wall balls in a compromised state so that you don't get as much rounded posture, ball far away from you, knees collapsing, because these are all ways that you're gonna just waste more energy. So get your legs nice and strong, get your upper back and lower back and posture nice and strong, and get your arms and shoulders nice and strong too. When it comes to your breathing mechanics, keep it simple. You want to exhale on the way up, inhale on the way down. However, this will also be dictated by how fit you are and the speed that you do your repetitions. If you are popping your reps out very, very fast, you may not want to take breaths on every single rep, right? Otherwise you're going to be going etc. Okay. However, if you're doing it a little bit slower, then one rep, one breath is probably the ideal situation. There are people out there that do 2 reps for every 1 breath, but again, that's just going to be based off you, what you prefer. So again, stick to 1 rep per breath and find what's best for you. Fast, efficient, powerful wall balls are built on the foundations of good quality movement patterns. So yes, you need to practice the wall ball skill itself. However, if you can squat well, deadlift well, overhead press well, pull well, and just have good quality movement in the gym, wall balls are going to be way, way more efficient and easier for you. Work on your front squat and back squat. Work on your hinge, your deadlift, your Romanian deadlift, your good mornings. Work on your press variations, your vertical presses, push press, strict press, dumbbell press. It's really important that you practice these basic fundamental skills so on the day when you are fatigued, you don't even have to think about it. Your body just knows how to move. Also work on all of those back muscles, those posterior chain muscles, the pulls, the rows, the chin-ups, the pull-downs. Those will help ensure that you can stay tight, like I mentioned earlier, stay tight, stay rigid as you get fatigued. The wall ball is essentially just a front squat into a push press or an overhead press, right? In this vertical direction. And like I said earlier, it's predominantly a lower body exercise, and those shoulders and arms will just fatigue because they're having to be up here for extended periods of time, but they're smaller muscles. They're generally a lot weaker than the legs. So 2 of my favorite exercises to help condition the shoulders, strengthen the shoulders, and develop whole body power and strength and endurance. Number 1 is the seated dumbbell Z press. What you do, get yourself 2 dumbbells, chuck them up into this position. You want to make sure that core is nice and tight, your back is nice and tight, and we're pressing and we're using all that core and shoulders and arms to get that weight overhead. You can cross your legs, you can have your legs out in front, or you can open your legs. And exercise number 2 are barbell thrusters. Now, I don't like thrusters being done with kettlebells or dumbbells. I like it with the barbell because that bar is going to stay really close and tight to your center of mass. It's teaching you how to front squat with the elbows high and then produce the force from the legs out into the upper body, which is perfect for wall balls. So if you want to level up your wall ball performance, speed, strength, power, endurance, follow some of these basic fundamental tips that I've given you today. The ball position, the start position, the bottom position, your breathing mechanics, your throw mechanics, and work out what stance is best for you, whether you are a quad upright dominant athlete or a little bit more of a hip dominant athlete if you've got them long femurs like myself. And there you have it, how to do a wall ball.